Hello everyone, Justin Vacula here with another video in my Stoic Philosophy series titled, Is There Such a Thing as Real Stoicism? You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my website at justinvacula.com. Links are in the video description. My Stoic Philosophy video series explores the philosophical tradition of Stoicism with goals to inform, empower, and help others benefit from the practical wisdom of ancient Greek, Roman, and modern thinkers. I tackle many topics including handling adversity, finding meaning in life, working toward contentment, dealing with change, anger, and gratitude. Professor of philosophy Gregory Bassham at King's College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, commented on a Facebook post of mine writing the following, quote, Stoicism makes zero sense apart from religion. I mean real Stoicism, not the watered-down, ersatz Stoicism people practice today. Real Stoicism says, 1. Never complain because the gods ensure things happen for the best. 2. Never get bummed out by hard knocks because A. They happen for the best, C1, and B. They aren't harms because only loss of virtue is a harm, and hard knocks can't cause a loss of virtue unless you let them. The ancient Stoic view is that virtue is the sole and all-sufficient good. Socrates on the rack is a happy man. There is no respectable philosophical argument for such a view. It's grounded in a religious worldview that views the gods as valuing virtue above all things and arranging things so that whatever is right, unquote. Thanks for your comment, criticism, and time, Dr. Bassham. I'd like to spend time in this scripted video rather than simply authoring and posting a quick response on Facebook in order to better organize my thoughts and respond to you. This could be a good way, too, to share these ideas with viewers and continue our conversation. I tend to avoid Facebook discussions for the most part. To start, I'd like to talk a bit about reading others' thoughts and drawing upon wisdom from various traditions, especially ancient ones. Philosophers, psychologists, theologians, and many others surely have contributed many thoughts to the world. Some, perhaps due to the passage of time, which brings about new information, reputations, and discoveries, become flawed in many ways. Perhaps we can take some bits of wisdom, or even a good deal of wisdom from thinkers of times past, even modern ones, and apply them to our lives today. Stoicism in particular addresses many perennial human concerns. Some passages I've been reading from Seneca recently address death, spending time well, how to establish and maintain friendships, being social, and certain desires to avoid and pursue, among many other topics. I think it's fitting, with Seneca's words and the words of others, to critically reflect on what is being said, questioning it all, accepting some, and rejecting that which doesn't seem true, or perhaps may not be relevant in our modern society. Indeed, Stoic thinkers mention a deity, providence, fate, fortune, gods, and many other concepts which would lead us to think that religious thought goes hand in hand with Stoic thought. Epictetus, for instance, talks about God being the father of mankind in Book 1, Chapter 3 of his Discourses. In Chapter 6 of Book 1, titled On Providence, Epictetus advances what seems to be an argument from design, that living things show the handiwork of an artificer, that they are not products of chance. He writes, If not, let them explain to us what is that brings this all about, and how it is possible that things so wonderful, and which carry such marks of craftsmanship, should come into being, their own accord, and at random. Today, given many scientific discoveries, evolution by natural selection overwhelmingly seems to provide a sufficient account for the development of life forms as we know them, without appealing to some sort of creative deity. Perhaps one might ask about the origin of life, abiogenesis, and some questions exist surrounding that, but even if we say, I don't know, this shouldn't lead us to the conclusion that there exists a deity. The lack of explanation, surely, shouldn't lead us to a conclusion that a god or gods exist. I don't find compelling arguments for a god or creator existing within Stoic texts or outside of them. However, I can take a good deal of wisdom from Stoicism and use this information to better my life and reflect. Some statements I will agree with, and some I won't. What might real Stoicism be? Who, if anyone, should identify as a Stoic? Are there certain things people must endorse or reject in order to qualify as a Stoic? Personally, I don't like labels because I find them to be limiting. They lump me in with others I don't want representing me and create a good deal of confusion. I'll talk about issues topic to topic, point by point, rather than just embracing a certain label, for the most part. I create videos here about Stoic philosophy and offer my thoughts on the content I read. I'll talk about current events and add some quotes from Stoic thinkers. That's fine for me. Stoicism can make sense for me with or without a religious framework. What about complaining, as Dr. Bassham mentioned? Stoic thinkers indeed talk about complaining being unhelpful, that we can and sometimes should instead take an action to change what we can and bear that which we cannot change. I talk about this in my video concerning handling adversity. And the idea that gods ensure things happen for the best, well, being an atheist, surely I will reject this idea, and instead think of the universe as being indifferent of human concern, that things simply happen, and fortune, another idea referenced in Stoic writings, will, in a way, play its part. Epictetus talks about imitating those who play at dice, to take whatever falls and apply skill. The outcome can often be out of our control, but we can accept that rather than complaining, wallowing in misery, and losing hope. Stoicism encourages process-based rather than results-based thinking, something which really appeals to me as a poker player. Without a belief in a deity, well, I can take these ideas from Stoic thought and benefit from them even if I am adapting to some extent. After all, wouldn't philosophy and even the ancient Stoics themselves call for us to revise our beliefs when there is good reason to question and modify them? Several passages from Stoic thinkers praise open-mindedness and lament a stubborn insistence to hold beliefs even when new information is presented, which should or could bring about a change. I wouldn't say, though, that Stoic thinkers would always say that things happen for the best, because there are some references to chance, particularly in Seneca's letters to a Stoic. Letter 16, titled On Philosophy, the Guide of Life. He writes, "Whether we are caught in the grasp of an inexorable law of fate, whether it is God who as Lord of the universe has ordered all things, or whether the affairs of mankind are tossed and buffeted haphazardly by chance, it is philosophy that has the duty of protecting us. She will encourage us to submit to God with cheerfulness and to fortune with defiance. She will show you how to follow God and bear what chance may send you. But I mustn't pass on here to a discussion of the problem, what is within our control, if there is a governing providence, whether we are carried along and meshed in a train of fated happenings, or whether we are at the misery of the sudden and the unforeseeable." Regarding Dr. Basham's comments about harms, indeed Stoic thinkers seem to converge upon the idea that the only harm is loss of virtue, damage to the body, imprisonment, torture, and even death can be something outside of our control, thus should be of no concern to us. It does not interfere with our personal authority to make use of judgments about the world, our free will, as we might say today. It is not taken away. I'm not totally sold on this idea, mainly because a low quality of life could hinder our ability to be social, to help others, to teach and thrive, all things which Stoic thinkers praise. Indeed, we can do our best to be content while imprisoned, faced with torture, or living in abject poverty, for instance, but these situations, even the Stoic thinkers themselves acknowledge, would not be preferred. That which would hinder my practicing virtue, well, I could not possibly call myself, or Socrates, a happy man on the rack, as Dr. Bassham mentioned in his comment, because significant extreme hindrance would interfere with quality of life and practice of virtue. However, I think that a reasonable minimalist lifestyle, limiting desires, and valuing the study and practice of philosophy, common themes of Stoic thoughts, are really important. Again, I can take some ideas from Stoic thinkers and leave and or question some others, with little or no concern about things like real Stoicism or watered-down Stoicism, as Dr. Bassham mentioned. Stoicism has a great deal to offer and has had a tremendous influence on theories in counseling, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy. I talk more about this in my video, Why Stoicism? I've personally benefited from the tradition greatly, I think, just reading and studying and applying some concepts for maybe a year and a half now. Throughout my time at King's College as a student, where Dr. Bassham teaches, I discovered a wide variation of thought between those who call themselves Christians, including pastors, professors, students, and theologians. Some spoke of Christ's resurrection as a metaphor, not believing that he physically, supernaturally, or literally rose from the dead. Some did not believe in hell, or even an afterlife in heaven. Those perhaps were metaphors as well, or ideas endorsed by thinkers of ages past, but no longer hold up under scrutiny, perhaps because of more modern scientific discoveries linking personality and life to the brain, and a lack of evidence surrounding the soul. Even philosophical objections from David Hume and other thinkers presented in classes which were offered when I was enrolled cast serious doubts on Christian beliefs. So, who are the real Christians? Who practices real Christianity? Would someone need to endorse all of Aquinas' views to qualify, for instance? What if there were disagreements concerning certain points or an outright rejection of certain ideas? Perhaps instead of talking about whether we must adhere to all elements of a tradition or a thinker and deciding what real or watered down means, even using the terms to begin with, we can instead reflect upon what is being said and take something away which holds value. We can talk about individual assertions and core themes within a school of thought and gain something from the reflection. I'm fine with that. Let me end the video with a passage from Seneca, letter 21 in his letters from a Stoic titled, On the Renown Which My Writings Will Bring You. He writes, I think we ought to do in philosophy, as they are wont to do in the Senate, when someone has made a motion, of which I approve to a certain extent, I shall ask him to make his motion in 2 parts, and I vote for the part which I approve. So I am all the more glad to repeat the words of Epicurus, in order that I may prove to those who have recourse to him through a bad motive, thinking that they will have in him a screen for their own vices, that they must live honorably, no matter what school they follow. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more content. I look forward to a response from you, Dr. Bassham, and other viewers. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my website at justinvacula.com. Links are in the video description. Please subscribe, share, comment, and like the video if you find my contribution worthwhile. Watch earlier videos on this channel in which I explore perspectives within Stoic philosophy that can help you improve your quality of life. Consider donating if you support my work and would like to see more, for this takes time and effort to produce content. I seek to have more scripted videos like this one and to improve my video quality through using different approaches and learning how to better create YouTube content, although my time can be quite limited given other obligations. Have a great day.